Derek Carr has retired after 11 seasons in the NFL. Na 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 na. Hey, goodbye. See you later. So we are told that Carr was dealing with a tear and degenerate condition with his rotator cuff, and he was all messed up, and that surgery would not guarantee a full return to starting status and effectiveness as a quarterback in the NFL. The Saints released a prepared statement, and in that prepared statement, Derek Carr, the reporting said that he tried all different options to get back on the field, and ultimately decided against having another surgery, and he will thus retire. So, let us discuss. Carr's been around. We've talked about him a fair amount over the years, going back to his days with the old Oakland Raiders back in the day. So let's discuss the question, what is Derek Carr's legacy in the NFL? So I've got brown bagger, freshwater fishing, and Pepsi challenge. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make pastrami fries. That's fries covered in pastrami and delicious cheese on top, and yes, outstanding. So first of all, from a gambling standpoint, I am upset. I loved betting against Derek Carr in big spots. There are very few quarterbacks that suck more under pressure than Derek Carr. Let's just call it like it is, right? This guy, a great artist of the choke in big moments. You knew if the pressure was on, this guy would have tight tuchus syndrome in big games. And we did pretty well. One of the things we've gotten right consistently, big spot, go against Derek Carr. And you're going to be on the right side of that game more times than not. But this was a weekend surprise. We did not have this on our particular bingo card, and we thought, again, it was kind of fake and all that stuff, and obviously that was not the case. But Derek Carr, he wasn't, some of the stories I've seen have been like, well, this guy's, what a heroic career, came out of nowhere. No, he wasn't undrafted, right? He wasn't undrafted. He was drafted, I think, in the second round or whatever. He wasn't underrated either. Does anyone think Derek Carr was underrated? He certainly wasn't overrated. He was always just kind of there. Derek Carr was just kind of there. That's it. I mean, you rarely acknowledge anything he did that was great because he didn't do anything really great. Carr is the equivalent as a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's like elevator music. He's just background noise. That's all he was. Now, listen, you're taking a shot. I'm not taking a shot. I'm just telling you how he played. You don't have to like it, but his career is now over. He's done, and that's how I'm going to remember Derek Carr. He was background music. He was, right? The quiet hum of existence. That's it. His superpower, what was it? It wasn't throwing touchdown passes or interceptions, avoidance or sack avoidance or making the big throw in a pressure situation. That was not his superpower. His superpower was as a brown bagger, okay? He got a brown bag filled with cash, and then he got another one, and another one, and another one. He certainly doesn't have to worry about going to Canton, Ohio, and getting a gold jacket, but I would say that Derek Carr is eligible for the coveted brown jacket. First ballot brown jacket winner. Congratulations. Go to the haberdashery and get fitted for your brown jacket. Carr earned over $200 million on the field. $200 million. He is the same vintage of quarterback. If you were to say, who's the comp on Derek Carr? If I could have a Derek Carr-type quarterback, who would that be? That would be John Kitna, if you remember him. Andy Dalton, who's still collecting paychecks as a backup. Ryan Tannehill, a second-rate quarterback who's not the worst. He's not certainly in a top 10 at any point, not a top 10 player. And he's somewhere in the middle, but on the lower end, sometimes slips down to a third-tier quarterback. Now, is it true that Derek Carr played a role in the Raiders leaving Oakland? And the answer is absolutely yes. And this is one of those taboo topics people don't like to bring up. That's unfair. You shouldn't bring that up. Okay, why not? It's a fact. That's on the resume. If you're an Oakland Raiders fan and you're still bitter and broken, one of the things you can point to, an underlying condition for the Raiders, why they left Oakland, Derek effing Carr. Derek effing Carr. Now, let me give you my evidence on this. Okay, I'm going to make my elevator pitch why Derek Carr 100% is partially to blame for the Raiders leaving for Las Vegas. Carr turned out to be the last hope at quarterback for the Oakland Raiders. The last hope. He arrived in 2014 as the starting quarterback for the Raiders. Had, in a parallel dimension, this happened, Derek Carr galvanized the Raiders and put the team on his back and led the franchise to a Super Bowl. Derek Carr would have kept the team from leaving for Vegas. Oh, no, it's all about the politicians. Well, one thing I know about sleazeball politicians, they love a winner. And if the Raiders were losers in Oakland, they were pathetic the second time they went to Oakland. So they were a pathetic group of players. Had they won in that final push, the last couple years they were the Oakland Raiders, you could have worked out a deal. And the team would have built a stadium. The politicians would have worked out a deal to build a politician. Even in California, the People's Republic of California, there was a path to a stadium. But Derek Carr sucked at a time you cannot suck. And he was just good enough to drive you crazy, to pull your hair out, and because he would suck in big moments and all that stuff. And instead he put up what turned out to be empty stats with the Oakland Raiders, and then was with the team when they moved to Las Vegas. They got the stadium deal, but they didn't get it in Oakland. They got it in Vegas because Vegas has a lot of money, and they were desperate for a team, and they were horny for a team, and so that's what happened. Now, with Derek Carr gone, Gonzo, the Muppet, what's next for the Saints? What is next for the Saints? So it's the great unknown. Now, it looks bad. Man, does it look bad. It looks like this is going to be an 0-16 quarterback room. You have right now the de facto starter. Tyler Shuck is the starter. Shucks. Tyler Shuck. Who is that? He was a 25-year-old, was at Louisville, and was just drafted with I believe it was the 40th overall pick, I think, if I'm right on that. So he was drafted by the New Orleans Saints. He's the de facto starter. Now, if Shuck can't shuck it, they'll get rid of him, and then they have Spencer Rattler. Whee! I'd rather have a snake rattler than Spencer Rattler, so he's there. Then you have somebody named Jake Hayner, who is also in the quarterback room. Yeah, they should just put a king cobra out there with the rattler. That would be entertaining. No one would sack. If you had an actual life-size rattlesnake, you think those big, tough defensive players would try to sack a rattlesnake? Hell no. Now, I don't know how a rattlesnake would throw the ball, but imagine the rattlesnake on a quarterback keeper. You're going to run for a touchdown every time. There'll be defenders jumping off as the rattler goes down the field into the end zone. Man. Anyway, so it doesn't matter which way you go. You've got suck, crap, and garbage. Those are the three options at quarterback, so good luck to the Saints there. They're trying to find lightning in a bottle, and it's fine. It's not like they were going to win anything with Derek Carr anyway. Okay, they were not. And secondly, we go to Cleveland, where all weekend if you were on social media, and I wasn't on there much. I popped on a couple times. I had to go to a wedding. My presence was needed. It was not my choice. I was asked to be there, so I showed up. It was not my wedding. So that was years ago. So videos of Shadur Sanders working out with the Browns during practice, they went viral. Okay, and you couldn't get away from it. So question, how do you interpret the widespread Shadur Sanders workout video clips of him throwing the football around Browns minicamp? So I think of this like freshwater fishing. And I'm told, and I've only fished a few times in my life, but those of you that fish a lot, the number one bait, freshwater fishing is the worm. And this is clickbait. So it's like freshwater fishing bait. It's a worm. It's clickbait is what it is. There were around literally 500 social media clips of Shadur Sanders, 5-yard out passes, running against no defense, just against air, like basic football 101. Some of these things felt like they were staged for social media clickbait, trying to hype up Shadur Sanders and paint the picture that he's in line to be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, despite the fact he's a fifth-round pick and is low man on the totem pole going into the offseason and then training camp and whatnot. All right, now, final thought. To baseball. One more time. We go to baseball over the weekend. Another Dave Roberts content story. And we talked earlier, Dave Roberts defended Bud Black, who was whacked as Rockies manager. Second manager, 2 in a week. The Pirates fired their manager, and then the Rockies said, all right, we're next. So will we see a third? Usually these things happen in 3. So who's the next? Will the Orioles finally fire their manager? Will Sports with Coleman, our guy in Baltimore, replace the Orioles manager? Stay tuned. But in terms of Dave Roberts, this is not about the managerial changes or anything like that. Dave Roberts was buttering the biscuits of Shohei Ohtani. This after Ohtani played here. A wild game on Friday over the weekend as Ohtani, the Dodgers came back. They were getting smoked. They had the lead. They got smoked. Diamondbacks had the big lead. Then Ohtani, 3-run homer late. Dodgers win on a dramatic home run by Ohtani, and that led to Dave Roberts getting extra syrupy. He said, but quote, between him, meaning Ohtani, between Ohtani and Barry Bonds, those are the 2 best players I've ever seen, Roberts said. He was a teammate on the Giants back in Bonds' steroid days. He said, I played with Barry, but what Show, see, they're buddies, so they can say Show. What Show does in the clutch, I've never seen anything like that, what he does in the clutch. Close quote. Okay, so is Dave Roberts right? Is Shohei Ohtani truly a better clutch player than Barry Bonds? Dun, 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 dun. You know what this means? Maller investigation. So my investigation determined that Dave Roberts is showing recency bias. Now, by no means was Barry Bonds a great clutch player. The fear factor of Barry Bonds, though, the amount of intentional walks that Barry Bonds got because he wasn't built like Adonis. He was enhanced like He-Man or the Incredible Hulk. He just had this amazing ability to really bulk up. And so, now, listen, we don't care all that much about regular season clutch play. We don't. I go by the mantra, Major League Baseball had the campaign, that legends are born in October. So we'll look at the side-by-side Pepsi Challenge, Barry Bonds and Ohtani. And really, when you talk about October, you're talking about World Series. And you cannot do a true side-by-side on playoff career because Barry Bonds played 48 playoff games, and Ohtani's only played 16. That's it. And he never made the playoffs with the Angels, and just this last year, the Dodgers were in the playoffs. So it's an uneven comparison, so you can't do that. So we'll throw that out. But if you look at the numbers, neither one of them is hit. Well, Bonds hit 245 in the playoffs. His most famous moment was with the Pirates in the NLCS, those that are old enough to remember, when this guy that was the speed of a turtle that was high on weed named Sid Bream was able to score, and Barry Bonds was out in the outfield and failed to throw out Sid Bream wearing the Pirates uniform, and that was embarrassing. But Bonds was not a great postseason player, but neither is Ohtani. Ohtani's a .230 hitter in his playoff career last year with the Dodgers. Bonds had 9 home runs in his playoff career. Ohtani, 3 home runs last year. So we really break it down to the World Series, and that's a fair comparison. Here's why. Barry Bonds made 1 World Series. 1 World Series with the Gigantes, and that was 2002 against the Angels. And Ohtani's been in 1 World Series. So that's a fair comp. That you agree. You're shaking your head. Yes, you agree. So on that comparison, side-by-side Pepsi Challenge, Barry Bonds, better clutch player than Ohtani. And it's one of those things you're not supposed to talk about because it ruins the legend, and we don't want to ruin the legend. Ohtani in the World Series last year, this is the shocking thing about that World Series, when the Yankees imploded and gave away Game 5, Shohei Ohtani batted 105. That's a freeway in Southern California. 105 Ohtani batted in the World Series. He had no home runs, no runs batted in the 2025 World Series. Barry Bonds, Balco Barry, against the Angels in the most important World Series of Justin Cooper's life, Barry Bonds batted .471 with 4 home runs in that World Series in 2002. So side by side, advantage. Neither one of them, I would say, is all that great a clutch player, but side by side, based on the World Series, the side by side Pepsi Challenge, the advantage goes to Barry Bonds. No recency bias on that. Ohtani's got a small sample size, and he'll assume he stays with the Dodgers, and he'll have many more opportunities to hit home runs and all that stuff and change the story. But you better get back to the World Series and bat better than 105. He was a decoy. That was about it. He was like a decoy in the World Series, Ohtani, against the Yankees.